Hello and welcome back to the Finish More Music Challenge here. I am trying to live stream every day here and encourage you to work on your music for at least 1 hour every day through the month of May. And I've been a little sick here. I'm still a little sick, so that's why I sound a little weird. And today I'm going to be working on my own music. So that's kind of what these live streams are, is just me working on my own music. So you can just see me in my natural habitat working on music. So if you've any questions along the way, feel free to ask. Today I'm going to be working on mastering a song, and I'll try to be a little bit more didactic than normal and actually kind of walk through my process for mastering. I'm certainly not an expert at this stuff, but it works for me, and this is what my mentor has taught me how to do, so I'll kind of share that in this lesson, what I do for my own music and for my clients. So with that, by the way, if you haven't already, yesterday's live stream was really awesome with Mark Matthews with Inside the Mix. It was really great. So if you haven't seen that already, checked it out. It's one of the shorter ones. I might answer some questions as well that I've been getting later on in this video. We'll see. So, or in this live stream. So I'm going to add my song here to the stage. This is what I've been working on in previous live streams, my song Neon Sea. And it's basically ready. What is that's okay? That's my other okay. So it's ready for mastering. I'm decided to call it done. It's definitely not perfect, but I'm just going to call it done, and we're going to master it and release it. So if you want to see me go through the process of actually like releasing a song to streaming platforms, let me know. So anyway, this is what the track looks like. So we're going to bounce it. So the way I do it is I just use the cycle range to highlight everything I want to export, and I make sure that there's some blank space at the end here. That's important for denoising. If you're wanting to do denoising, you want to have some of that just silence here. So you can pick up the noise floor and the noise profile if you want to denoise, which really only comes into effect if you're using a tool like RX or something, which probably most people don't have since it's kind of expensive. So with that, I made sure to turn my limiter off. I had that on just for the mix bus purposes, so I can kind of be mixing at the volume level, at the final volume level that's going to be. So I just turned that off, and then I want to make sure I'm peaking, or I'm not peaking, but my average volume is around -23 LUFS. Peaking would be you don't want to go higher than like -6. So this is a quiet section, so. So tad loud, but not a huge deal. A couple and we're true peak's good. So that's good enough. Wait, that was interesting. Looking at it. We're getting into some phasing issues down here. That's just because everything was panned far left and right. Looking at this list adjust meter here, making sure we're above 0. So then I would go ahead and then go up to File and hit Bounce Project or Section. And let me just zoom in a little bit here. This is like as much as I can zoom in, sadly. Let me see. Can I? Let's see. No, I'm not able to zoom in any more than this, unfortunately. So then I would do wave format. 24-bit wave is very important because it's a lossless file type, so you're not going to be compressing it, losing data. 44.1 sample rate, no dithering, because we're going to do that in the mastering. I am doing the cycle range. We have that offline, and include tempo information is good. Normalize off. So yeah, so these are the settings. And then I would just click OK, and then it would export, which I've already done that to save time. And I have my mastering project. So then you'd want to open it in a separate project. It's kind of just a good rule of thumb when you go to master, so you can have a clean slate. Hey, we've got DJ Victor Nova on here again. Good evening. Good to see you again. And Stardy23. Yeah, thank you. Was that reference to the live stream from yesterday, or I can't remember what that was in reference to? Let's see, this screen is now. Okay, reset that. All right, so this is what we're gonna do for the mastering here. So I got some references. So I'm gonna break this down basically 5 steps. So step number 1 would be to import your reference tracks. I've already done that here. I've got Summer of Heat by Mitch Murder featuring Christine, which is probably my most favorite song of all time at this point. And then Because the Night, which is by The Midnight, which is also a cover song. So these are kind of the references I'm going to use. I'm not sure how much I can actually play these during the live streams because I don't want to get copyright strikes. So we'll see. But what you want to do with your references, you just kind of want to compare your track to your references and see how your overall frequency ranges are sitting compared to those references, and also maybe how your individual instruments are doing to some extent, right? That's maybe more for the mixing phase. And I need to cough, unfortunately. It's the downside of being sick and live streaming. And then, because you can't really impact individual instruments as strongly here since you're just dealing with the master track, but that's just something to pay attention to. I'm going to color my track a little differently so we can tell them apart. Oh, okay, that's that one. That's red. Okay. There. Okay, we got different colors. All right. So step number 1, import your references. Number 2 would be to have your metering set. This is an important step of mastering. So I'm using a couple different metering options here. I don't know what meters you have. Let's see. Like a free one in Logic would be this like multimeter. So you've got this analyzer here. You've got your LUFS meter over here. So you're basically, your LUFS is like your average volume. And then you have like your peak volume. And so I'll talk about that in a second. But what you're aiming for with your average volume, a lot of people say like minus 14 dB because that's what like most streaming platforms will knock you back to. But if you look at like all the top hit songs, they're going to be more in the -8, like -7, -8, -10, -12 range, kind of that range. So, and louder songs do, to the human ear, we perceive them to be better. Now, of course, streaming platforms are going to knock those all back, but if you're going to be then putting that on a CD or people are listening to it in other places, downloads, then we want it to still be that match up with those other songs that are out there. So I tend to shoot for around -8 to -10. We'll just shoot for -10 in this case. So if you have, here's like a VU meter by waves. I don't know, there's like free ones out there. So you can set what you want your headroom to be. So I have it at 10. That's not peak because that would be really quiet. So this way we're kind of looking at the average volume and want to kind of sit around 0. But also have iZotope Insight 2, which is like the best metering plugin out there because it gives you so much different things that you can look at. But then we also have if you just have one that your DAW has, you can use that too. So you'll be looking over here. So that is kind of important, having these meters set up. So let's see, I'll just have this one up for now. So that's step 2. And then step kind of before you get started, and kind of really related to your references, is you want to kind of listen to your track, listen to your references, and take some notes on what you think could be improved. So I'll see how much I can get away with this. And we're going to make sure we want to volume match these so that my track is not way quieter than the other tracks. So let's see if I can just kind of volume balance that real quick. So I'm going to pull up Insight 2 actually for this and just pay attention to this. All right, I think mine was, it was like at -21, so this is still loud. So let me pull this down to like -15. Now, I'd probably want to spend more time hunting for a better reference song, but I didn't have time to do that because this isn't quite the same style. It's the same genre, but not really the same style as my song, so mine's a little bit more ambient. All right, that's pretty close to where mine was. I think that's pretty close too. All right, so then we got our track up here. It's actually reading louder than what we had. We're pretty well balanced there. So now we got those levels matched. And then what I like to do is I kind of like to work backwards. So I'll actually then add a limiter to my track then, which I should probably add that to the stereo out. Which actually, in hindsight, I should have done it the other way around and kept the volume levels up for these tracks and just turned the limiter on. So I think I'll go ahead and do that. Actually, I'm not thinking straight. So if we listen to Summer of Heat. Oh, sorry about that. All right, yeah, it's a lot louder now. So you can see that's at like -9.3. So that's way above -14. That's at -11.5, so also way above -14. So yeah, most tracks you're not actually going to see it sitting at -14, like a lot of people will talk about online. So that's good. And so then we want to set that with our limiter here. So here's the limiter. Now this is going to be the last plugin in the chain, but I'm just setting this up first so that we are listening at the same, the proper volume level that we're going to be working at, because it's really hard to do your comparison between your references and your track if they're not at the same volume levels. So people have not really disagree, but people have different ideas on like what to set your out ceiling. I've seen some people do -0.1. Other people will do like minus 0.5. My instructor where I learned did 0.2. So anywhere from, I guess, minus 0.1 to 0.5 is acceptable. The P78 set -78. So sadly, I have to leave, but Def watching this later. Thanks. Awesome. Thanks for stopping by. DJ Victor Nova says, do you reference songs that are in the same key? That's not really as important. What's more important with your references is you want them to either have the same kind of instrumentation, be in the same genre, or just have the same vibe or characteristics that you're looking for. So for example, like maybe you want your song to kind of have the feel of like a Beatles song, but you wouldn't really want to reference that for like production quality, because production quality has advanced so much farther than what we had at the time of the Beatles. But if you're looking for like tonal characteristics of certain instruments, that can be a good reference track. Then you might also want to have a more modern song for reference. So using those two references, so you have your more modern song as a reference for more the sonic characteristics, the frequency range, the punch and snap of different elements. So that's kind of when people talk about using multiple references, that's kind of where you want to use them. You don't want to, right? It can be kind of cumbersome to just load up a bunch of references. You're like, why am I using all these different references? Well, you kind of want to be strategic and like know specifically what you're referencing. So for example, my song is kind of a synthwave song. So these are some synthwave songs that I'm kind of referencing. And this kind of is my guide here. So these probably aren't the best references, but I don't have the time to really go looking for a good reference for this track. So it's close enough. Great. You don't really have to sweat it. So hopefully that answers the question there. So let's hear now if we can get this volume level up. So we got the limiter. I have it at minus 0.2. And we got isotope up. So we're going to want to get this to like around minus 10-ish. And so all I'm going to do is just turn up the gain here. So this is just the free limiter inside of Logic. I typically use like a waves limiter though, but I'm trying to use free stuff so it's a little bit more relatable and easier to follow along. And one thing I forgot to mention, I should have mentioned earlier, I had it in my notes, but I forgot, is you want to loop when you're mastering, you want to kind of loop the loudest portion of your song, because if you can make that sound really good, then the rest of your track is probably going to sound good as well. Okay. So we're basically maxing out the adaptive limiter here in Logic, which I don't really want to use, because that's kind of an overall theme of Logic, is it's kind of idiot proof, for lack of a better term, which I like a lot of the time. For example, right, if you want to load up a MIDI track, technically MIDI is supposed to have two tracks. You have the actual track that's the MIDI data, then you have another track that's actual sound. Logic combines them into one track, so that's really nice. They'll have auxiliary, bus tracks set up for you like automatically, which is kind of nice sometimes not. So it's like they're kind of doing stuff behind the scenes for you. And so when you're limiting, if you have the proper headroom set on your mix when you export it, for example, that minus 23 LUFS that I mentioned, then typically what you're going to do on a limiter is you're probably going to want to add 12 dBs of gain. That's kind of what it always arrives at for me when I'm using like the waves one. So you can see right when we're maxing out here at 12, we're hitting right about where we want to hit. But it is a little bit limiting, so no pun intended. So the limiter I typically use is, where's my mastering? The L3LL multi-band limiter by Waves. And so we can get about the same thing if I do -2 here, and then we'd pull this down to -12. And what you're looking for is you want it to be looking for some consistent attenuation. So that'd be over here reduction. Over here it's called attenuation. Consistent by about like 1 to 3 dB is what you're looking for, and then you're doing a decent amount of limiting. So we can turn this off and hear how it sounds with this. So they sound pretty similar. I don't know. I just feel like the Waves one's a little smoother. I guess I don't know how else to characterize that. It also has dithering on, which doesn't have dithering. And so dithering is important when you're working in the digital domain inside of a computer, because basically when you're reproducing audio, right, your computer is trying to convert, electrical, or digital signals into electrical into like audio. So it's using like ones and zeros. You can kind of think of it like if you ever play the game Minecraft, you can try to make a circle out of blocks. You have to, if you only have like 4 blocks, it really isn't going to look like a circle. It's going to look more like a square. So, but the more blocks you put into that circle, the more circular it looks. Or if you think of like pixels on a screen, the more pixels you can include, the more you can resemble a circle. And so that's kind of what you're getting here with all these waveforms with the sound in a computer, is it's trying to make like these waveforms out of these different bits of data, right? In this case, 24 bits of data. And that's pretty good, but it's still a little too perfect. So what dithering is it basically adds in bits of noise to try to kind of round things off to result in a more rich, a more natural sound. Like just basically an overall better sound is the best way I know to kind of describe that. Hopefully that is helpful. So you want to do dithering as well, and this has a couple different types of dithering. You have to listen really hard to tell the difference. We'll see if we can hear the difference. I've noticed my live streams, the audio quality isn't like the best, so you probably definitely can't tell through this live stream. So let's see if we can hear it. I'm gonna be honest, I can't really hear the difference. I know some people out there with better critical listening can probably hear the difference. I can't really hear the difference. So I just usually leave it at the default settings there. And so we can see again the attenuation. I mean, that's really subtle. Like I might even pull this down a little bit more. So now we're hearing a little bit more consistent limiting throughout. And so we're hitting at about -9, so it's a little bit above our goal there. So we look at our VU. And you're still more or less right around there. So it's, I mean, yeah, this is not as precise, obviously, as Insight, which is why Insight's really great. But minus 10 to, or minus 9 to minus 10, that's an acceptable range. I think Summer of Heat looked at that, wasn't it like minus 8? So already right off the bat, I think my track sounds a lot darker than that. Way darker. And that's a little bit stylistic because my track's kind of a more darker ambient kind of feel versus like a bright pop kind of song. But we're going to address that now. So anyway, those are the first kind of couple steps. So we got putting in your references, you're setting up your meters, and then I usually throw in the limiter first. It's kind of backwards from what most people will say, but it's definitely the last plugin in your chain. So you can see over here, it's definitely, you want it to be the last plugin. I'll turn this off. And so then we're going to add in our first plugin now. So this would be step, I guess, 4, or first, I guess, effect plugin is EQ. And I need to cough for a second. And so with EQ, on mastering, you're typically want to use a linear phase EQ. So this is just the stock linear phase EQ that comes here in Logic. And so what happens with a regular EQ is, like, if I were to do this, like right at the cutoff here, regular EQs, they actually introduce some phase shifting, which is fine when you're using it like an individual track, but when you're using it across your entire stereo mix where all your tracks have been combined, you can add in some phase issues and your track can sound a little out of phase, which can make it, the audio just sound kind of smeared and flangey and just kind of bad. And so we don't want to do that. So by using linear phase, then we are using EQ without, it's completely linear, right? It's just what you hear is what you get. You're not adding any extra phase issues. And so, the way, like, what has been typically like taught is you want to kind of roll off like the low lows, anywhere from like 30 to 40, and then even like the high. And the reason, and I'm not as certain on why the high frequencies, I know I've been told like they can cause some like listening fatigue. You're not really going to hear much of a difference with this, like we'll hear before and after. Lagging. You can definitely hear those super like high brilliance frequencies getting a little dulled. So I typically just kind of move this above like 18, if at all. It's not really necessary, I don't think. Now this is what's been done because of, in the days of like analog and vinyl, is if you had too much of those low sub bass frequencies, it can actually cause like the needle to skip off the record. And it also can help save you headroom. So that's like probably a little bit more important. So we'll put it like right around like 30 hertz and we'll keep a more gentle slope here. Now we kind of just want to listen to our reference and our track and kind of figure out what we need. So one simple thing you can do is what's called the smiley face curve, where you kind of just boost the highs up here. And typically when you're mastering, you don't want to do anything more than like 2 dB. So maybe we'll go like that. And there's got to be a way to zoom in. That's the one downside of this Logic EQ is like it's almost too zoomed out versus like Let's see. Ozone has a free EQ, I believe. I believe it's still free. Or Isotope's Ozone EQ, I believe, is still free. And it's also dynamic, I'm pretty sure. So Isotope. Ozone 11 equalizer. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is free. I need to cough again. Sorry about that. So we can kind of do the same things here. But you can see the scale here, right? 4 dB is all the way at the top here. So you can like do massive, you know, what looks massive like this. Do like in here, if you do like, okay, it's freezing. You do like that. That's like a huge difference from this. It's like, that makes it really hard to kind of control. So I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to turn this off. So we're going to do, again, kind of the same things we did. High pass. Keep it flat, and we'll set this, I think we're like around 30. I'm not going to worry about rolling off the highs. So kind of, I'm going to try to brighten it up by coming up here. And I think on the paid version of this, there's like, it can use like AI to kind of listen to your track and kind of get an idea. And then the reason why it's called like the smiley face kind of curve that people talk about is good for like beginners is you kind of boost the highs, and then you also kind of do a low shelf as well. And you can see there's different kinds of curves here. We'll do analog, and so we kind of will go like that. So you're kind of getting this kind of smiley face shapes. You're kind of boosting the bass and boosting the treble there, which I'm not sure if this track needs that. It is definitely sounding a little better. It's a little more punchy. And then, so that's what we kind of like the basic shape. Then we kind of want to just listen to what's kind of the middle frequency ranges, what could possibly be improved on our track versus our like reference. It sounds like there's a lot more like muddy, like kind of low mids in my track, so I might want to kind of find those and kind of pull those out. So typically you're looking like the 350 to 500 range. So let's try pulling out some of these. Again, that looks like a big cut, but it's only 2 dB. So by cutting these lows, it actually sounds a lot brighter. So that's another thing. Like if sometimes you think your song isn't bright enough, instead of just boosting, like we could start, you know, boosting a ton like up here. Actually cutting what you don't want can actually help you get more of what you do want. So that's probably pretty good right now for EQ. Another really good metering tool I forgot to mention, because it is a paid tool, I'm pretty sure. It's another Isotope tool, which is tonal balance control. Sorry, my congestion is getting really bad right now. So you can kind of set a kind of style, or you can even import your reference into here, and it will kind of give you what your frequency ranges should be for your lows, your low mids, your high mids, and your highs. So I already have summer heat in here, so you can kind of already see what that's ranges, which is interesting how big a range the highs are there. This isn't really a pop song. Maybe I'll just do modern. What's the difference between modern and pop? Pop's just a little bit more narrow, dynamic. So I guess we'll just leave it at not jazz. Modern. So we'll see where my frequencies are sitting with this in mind. So this is saying like my high mids are way too high. So I can pull in my, again, since I'm using another isotope tool, the ozone tool, I can actually control this, the controls in that plugin like right here. And we can see it mapped to the different ranges. Now, the reason why that might be so high is because there's like a lead playing right there. So it's like not the way it is through the whole track. So if we just expanded this a little bit. And my highs are definitely lacking, so maybe we want to pull this up some more once it stops lagging. Okay. I didn't think we needed the smiley face curve on this because I thought it was already pretty good bass wise, and that's kind of indicating that. So I'm gonna just bring that bass shelf back down. I'm going down, guys. Too much coughing. So anyway, so this is kind of just a good way to check, right? Obviously you want to use your ears, but kind of having that visual to know, am I kind of within the acceptable ranges for my frequencies with my genre. DJ Victor's not sure if it's on mine, but your audio output seems mono. That is possible with the live streaming, because I've noticed the sound quality is not quite as good. I'm not sure if it was mono. I haven't listened to it. I did a test a while back, but I can't remember. So that might just be a limitation of the streaming software here. Because it's definitely not mono, because let's see if you can hear a difference if I do turn on mono versus not mono. So mono would be on. Oops. I'm on the wrong screen. So I know this track doesn't have a whole lot of panning. Things are so that could be a problem. Well, no, there's some tracks that are panned left and right. But there's not a lot of movement, so that could be partly why. So that could be an arrangement issue. Could have done a better job with that. But this was kind of just a quick get a song done, get it released kind of thing. So then the next kind of final step would be adding some compression, and there's some other optional things you can do. Like you might want to add maybe some saturation across your track, or maybe you want to do some other dynamics things, but like stereo expansion. I kind of already did that with the on the mix bus when I was mixing, so I don't want to do that. So let's look at adding some compression, and kind of like the typical kind of compression you want to add is some kind of like glue compression. So this can be done with any kind of like VCA compressor is good. I know in Logic here we have just the stock compressor comes with a VCA style compressor. So there's a studio VCA, there's a classic VCA, vintage VCA. I can't remember which one is which. This looks kind of like, maybe this is supposed to be like an SSL. I don't know. I can't remember what these are modeled off of. But anyway, do they have a glue like preset? Oops. Drum miss. I'm not seeing anything in here. That's like glue. But what you want to do is you want to have your ratio of like 2 to 4-ish. So we could do like 3. And then we want to have a fast attack. And you want to have like a slower release. And so a lot of people like to use like some kind of SSL style compressor if you're doing more of a, like a vintage style. So typically what I use is the Bus Compressor by IK Multimedia. And this has a nice glue preset here so you can see. Oops, I had it backwards. Attack is supposed to be slow. Release is fast. And then you kind of, as you can see, the ratios here is at 4. And then you're kind of just looking for like 1 to 2 dB of gain reduction. So that's how you kind of set up the threshold. So we'll hear that with this one. So if we pull it way back, you can hear what being overcompressed sounds like. So like right around here is probably good. So now we're doing kind of like 1 to 2 dB, and then we just kind of want to volume balance out the makeup gain. It's very subtle, and again, I don't know if you can hear that through the live stream, but to me, it kind of just brings everything just forward a little bit more. Another thing you could do is like add some like parallel compression if you wanted to. So maybe you pull up like a compressor here that has like a mix knob. And so you want to set like kind of like a fast attack, like fast release, do like a higher ratio. We'll do this. Well, we'll do just like 3-ish here. And then we can really do So you can hear that's really smashing things. So then we want to pull back the mix knob and we can kind of blend in that heavy compression if we wanted to. So you really hear it on like the drums. It really makes the drums a lot snappier and punchier. So maybe if you're not getting that enough from your like more transient elements, your more snappy percussive elements, and you can try some parallel compression there. And then otherwise, like that's pretty much it. You're pretty much good right there. Right, check your meters. Right, tonal balance or insight, or we can just use the Logic one here. So that's kind of a good start. And so if we can turn these plugins off in here before and after, except for the limiter, because we want to make sure we're comparing apples to apples, volume wise. So this is with no processing. So it's very subtle, but to me, again, I don't know if you can hear it through the live streaming software. So the downside with mastering, it's very subtle, so it's kind of hard to demonstrate it through the live stream here. So I might have to redo this just as like a one-off video on my channel. But what those moves did, what I'm hearing is just like the drums hit a little harder. Everything's a little bit more present. The whole track is a little bit more brighter. You can hear, I feel like you can hear everything a little better. And it just sounds a little bit more polished and finished. So that's kind of the basic steps there to mastering. So hopefully that was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. It hasn't quite been a full hour, but I'm losing the ability to talk. So I'll probably have to wrap things up here today. Keep going on that challenge. And by the way, if you want more help finishing pro quality music from home, if you want a complete step-by-step system on how to write your songs, how to set up your equipment, how to record, how to mix, how to master more in detail, more in depth, then you can get my course Radio Ready Record. It basically just walks you through how to go from nothing to a radio ready, professional sounding song from home using budget equipment. You can get this course by going to orpheus.audioacademy.com/RRR. And that course is actually on sale right now for 30% off through May. So that's like the lowest you can get this course. So if you want to save a little bit of money, but you're ready to really commit into your learning and becoming a pro, create pro quality music from home using the equipment and plugins you already have, then this is a great course for you. It's basically everything I've learned condensed and put into a step-by-step system. So definitely, I think some of the best training I've ever put together. So if you want to grab that, definitely check that out. And you can learn more by going to orpheus.audioacademy.com/RRR. DJ Victor Nova says, do you do the car test? No, I don't do the car test. But it's not because I don't think it's a good idea, but because my car doesn't have speakers. So I can't do the car test. That's it's so sad. Every car I've had, the car I had in college had speakers, but since then I haven't owned a car that actually had speakers, so I can't do the car test. But it is a good idea to test on different sound systems. So that's what I want to do with this. I want to export it and test it on different speaker systems before uploading it. So that could be just like your laptop speakers. That could be like your phone speakers, or listening to it on some headphones, or just some other like boombox or stereo you have lying around. And again, it's a good idea to listen to that with your references and kind of compare the two and see how it shakes out on more of the commercial listening equipment that people have and are going to be listening to your music to in the real world. So and the car is a good place too, because people are going to be listening to music in the car, which it's funny because the car is actually a really bad environment to listen to music because of the acoustics in the car, but that's where a lot of people listen to music. So that is a good place to test it as well, because you want to make sure if you're driving the car with your friends or your family and you want to play your music, you want to make sure that it stacks up against the other music out there. So that's a good idea to do. Sadly, I can't do that test myself. With that, I don't think I have any more questions coming in, so I wish you the best. If you have questions at any time you're watching the replay, go ahead and leave those comments on this video, and I'll be sure to respond to those as soon as I can. Or you can also shoot me an email at any time if you have a question or need help with anything, and I'll do my best to answer that as well. You can just email me, Reagan@OrpheusAudioAcademy.com. So with that, have an awesome day. Keep creating, and I look forward to hearing more from you guys and seeing what music you create over the month. And you can share that with me in the Facebook group. I can see if I can pull that up real quick. In case you're watching this and you don't know what the Facebook group is. I probably should. Let's see. Here it is. So it's called Beatforge Music Producer Alliance, and so this is the group where you can join and you can, ask for feedback on your music. This is where I kind of will share updates. I'll ask questions. You can ask questions here, and we can kind of more interact back and forth if you want to. And this is a free Facebook group, so check that out if you're interested. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, and have a great day.